Okay, this video is going to address appositives, predicate nominatives, as well as the expletive there and how we handle the word there in Latin. So, appositives are basically a noun or a pronoun that's just directly beside another noun. And so when we look at this sentence, Christ, the Son of God, is Lord, we see that there are commas placed there. So we can see that there's like a little clause there in the center. Christ to the left, I can recognize that's my subject noun. And then I can see the Son of God there. And the whole thing's not in a positive because of God is a possessive. That's a genitive there. But we can look at Son, and Son is going to act as the appositive here. And appositives are just another noun that explain or identify the subject. So here we've got the subject Christ, and so Son is identifying, it's telling us a little bit more about Christ, that he is the Son, okay? And so that's just a quick, how to determine the appositives when we're translating. So, and I'll come back to this sentence at the very end just to look at one more thing. Here we've got a predicate nominative. Christ is the Son of God. And so we'll just start, it's just like a typical sentence that you translate. And so we'll want to just look quickly and start labeling this like we would in essentials, figuring out our subject, verb, and all of that. So who or what is the Son of God? Christ. Okay, so Christ, and I like to group my things like this. And so this is my marker's already getting tired, nominative, and it's singular. It's also masculine. And I like to GNC, to gender, number, case, my nouns, because you want to establish this good habit where it becomes just rote memory. You know the gender of these words, singular and plurals, nominatives, the case, because when you get to adjectives, you have to know all three parts in order to deal with adjectives. So we're just establishing good habits right from the get-go so that when we get to adjectives, it's still a no-brainer. Where for somebody else who hasn't done these things, it'll be a little more of a struggle. So if you haven't done it so far, just start doing that gender, number, case to each of your nouns. All right, so now that we have our subject, what's being said about Christ? Christ is, so we know that that's a verb. We're not quite sure just yet what kind of verb. So we say Christ is who? Who or what? He's the Son. So one starts to think this has to be a direct object. And so we're going to place it there, but we're also going to ask one more question that will define whether that's truly a direct object or not. And that's simply to ask whether Son can rename or replace Christ. Can it rename Christ, Son? Absolutely, it can. And so we know it's not a direct object. It answers the question of a predicate nominative or a predicate noun. And so this, we have to label this one. And you can do your placement of what it is, predicate nominative. You can place that wherever you want. I just placed it there. And I know that this is then the rule that the book tells us when you're dealing with predicate nominatives in Latin is that you have to put them in the same case as its subject. So it already tells you it's a nominative, right? A predicate nominative. So we know it's going to be in a nominative to match this one. And so you would have... you would say Christus, and then you would have the filius. Okay, and so that's just how we would place it. And then this verb can go anywhere in a sentence. Est, it's also singular, right? It has to match your subject. And then you would translate the rest of this. Of God, we'd bracket together because of is an indicator. It's a genitive. So we'd put a genitive. It's singular and it's also masculine. Okay, and so then we can finish translating that. But I'm going to go then to, you know what? Let's go back real quickly to the appositive up here. Now that I covered the predicate nominative, I didn't even tell you the rule in Latin that when you have an appositive, that there's two things you have to do. So with the predicate nominative, it simply gets one thing with the predicate nominative, and that is it must be in the same case. So there's only one thing that we have to remember here. It must be in the same case, and it already tells you what case to put it in, the nominative, right? To match its subject. When we get to an appositive, I just showed we've got two P's in the word up here, and there's also two rules you have to follow, which is predicate nominatives get put in the same number and case as its noun. Okay, so the number and case here has to match the number and case here. Okay, so if we're thinking about number and case, and I can take those off, right? But I'm just putting that there as just a reminder, number and case, these guys need to match. Okay, so the number of Christ is that he is singular, and the case is nominative. So I'm just gonna come right over here, and this will be singular and nominative as well. So that's one of the rules. I also then wanted to back out for just a second, and you can also then see that sometimes you'll have an appositive in the sentence, but you will also have a predicate nominative. Because if I'm just looking at this independent clause here, Christ is Lord, I can see that Christ, this is a linking verb. I can take that is out, place an equal sign, and Christ equals Lord. That makes sense. Okay, and so this Lord then is a predicate nominative. Okay, and then I just have a quick cheat sheet over here just to give you a quick reference of how appositives work. They're a noun or pronoun. They are next to one another. They're not separated by a verb. They explain or identify the noun in a sentence, and it's often set off by commas. And so that's a good little indicator there. And then I just tell you that appositives, they have two P's, and there are two things that need to get labeled, the number and the case. And then when you come over to predicate nouns, you can just see side by side what makes them different, right? It's a noun, but it follows a linking verb, and it can rename or replace the subject. And then the nominatives, the predicate nominatives, you only have one thing to do, which is just match the case, which is the nominative. Okay, so that's just a quick little cheat sheet there for you. And then they address this expletive, the expletive there. And I just thought this was kind of interesting because they give you a little bit about it, just saying, is, there used as an expletive or is it an adverb? And I wondered, well, how do you tell if it's an expletive? Like, they talk about what the adverb form is, but I didn't know what the rest was. So I just wanted to, on Grammar Revolution, there's a woman named Elizabeth, and she has an awesome website, and she goes through a lot of the English grammar, and she's just really helpful in explaining things and keeping them really simple. And so I'm just gonna borrow from her one of the sentences that she gave, which is, there is no place like home. And then she walks you through determining whether there in this sentence here, is this being used as an expletive, meaning it's just added but it carries no meaning, or is it an adverb? And the way to tell, as she explained, was that if you can rework this sentence, leaving there out, and it doesn't change the meaning, then there is an expletive, meaning it's just there and it carries no meaning. So I can take this sentence and say, no place is like home. Okay, I didn't change the meaning. No place is like home. It means the same as there is no place like home. And so when I do that, I know that there, because I can remove it and I don't change meaning, it makes it an expletive. And then also in Henley, they let you know that it's not really translated in Latin, the word there, for an expletive. And so they add it with est. So when you're translating est and you're using it as is, sometimes you're going to have est in a sentence, and when you try to translate it as a he, she, or it is, it may not work. And so you'll need to look and see, oh, it can also be used, est can be translated as there is. And so that's what they're introducing you to as well. And the same thing with sunt. It can also mean there are instead of just they are. So that's just a quick little rule to keep in mind when you're translating from this point forward, when you hit these exercises and you see the expletive there, is that they can get used now where this can say, there are dangers in Gaul. Okay, so just keep that in mind, and I hope that was helpful to you.